and I went on a retreat in Belfast for creatives. We had a great week, and at some point in that week, the penny kind of dropped that I needed to bring this great desire for art and creativity right into the center of my life. Being out like sort of one of the outer planets of the galaxies, and I suddenly thought, I need to bring this so it's right here, bang in the center. And I remember writing in my journal and doing a description or drawing all the planets, and there it was, my art just kind of, shoved into this sort of backwater of my life, and everything changed actually from that point.
My name is Sonia Small here. I'm an artist, art coach, and course creator. I created the Help I'm Artist podcast because no matter where you are on your journey, whether you're just starting out or maybe you've been a working artist for a while, you too can take steps to turn your creative passions into a meaningful, sustainable profession. Happy listening. If you love making art and you're secretly wanting to embrace the life of an artist, then listen up. In this episode, I chat with UK artist Jane Beaumont. After a fulfilling career as a teacher and therapist, Jane finally took the step herself. Found out how a love note from her husband encouraged her to take those first brave steps. How she started sketching every day, soaking up inspiration on social media, and intentionally steering herself towards a life as an artist. Jane, wonderful to have you here as my guest. Just as we start off, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you? Who are you?
Thank you, Sonia. Yes, I'm in the UK, about an hour and a half north of London in the east part, where there's a lot of big farms and very rural, where I live in a very old cow barn.
You are a working artist. Is this something you've always done or aspired to do? How did you start off on this journey called artist?
Well, as I look back, I can honestly say I've always loved anything creative. School was a struggle for me. I really, I had a clash, I suppose, in my head and my heart about everything school, but I didn't realize it at the time. I just kind of endured it. And, I would have been the child that every teacher would say, oh, she's such a daydreamer. She's always looking out of the window and she just wants to draw. She just wants to do her own thing. So school was a struggle for me. And then I think I realized that it was okay to just do my thing quietly in the background. But, I just never put it in the center of my life. I went on actually to be a teacher myself. I remember one day thinking, this can't, I was only 8 years old, and I was thinking, I think I could do a better job than these teachers. It's so hard, the way they kind of make us do things. I'm sure I could make it a lot more fun. And even at that age, a kind of realization grew that I wanted to go into teaching. So I was a teacher for a long time. And enjoyed that. And then I went into being a therapist. So I was working with children who had really difficult life backgrounds and they'd suffered from trauma. And then I worked with a charity, and we were working overseas in Africa and in India. And so my life was caught up in these quite distinct chapters. But in the background, I suppose my art life was ticking away, very quietly. But I always kept it on a sort of periphery. It was something I did quietly for myself. And I remember very clearly that my husband and I went on a retreat in Belfast for creatives. I'm not quite sure how we got invited, but we did. And we had a great week. And at some point in that week, the penny kind of dropped that I needed to bring this great desire for art and creativity right into the center of my life. Being out like sort of one of the outer planets of the galaxies, And I suddenly thought, I need to bring this so it's right here, bang in the center. And I remember writing in my journal and doing a description or drawing all the planets, and there it was, my art just kind of I don't know, shoved into this sort of backwater of my life, and everything changed actually from that point. I wouldn't say instantaneously, but I brought it to where it needed to be. And I think sometimes you look back and you see these little turning points, and that definitely was one. And then I think it was the beginning of lockdown and the whole COVID time in March. I finished with my job, and I remember my husband saying to me, I think it's your time to do this. I said, yeah, well, maybe. One day I went up into my art room and he'd stuck, and I found this today on the back of a cupboard. It was a little sign, and it said an invitation to Jane Beaumont to turn pro. When? Today. And I remember just laughing and going, oh, he's just being very sweet.
Your husband wrote that note.
He wrote the note, yeah, it's an invitation. Really an invitation to, look, today, are you going to do this today, or are you going to keep putting this off? I just said, yeah. In my deep soul, I said, yeah, this is it. This is my time. I'm up for this. And I'm going to go.
So you made the decision, and then how did you, because I think a lot of people stand at that point like, oh yes, I'd love to, but now what? How do I give the shape and form? How do I bring it center into my life? What steps did you take?
Looking back, I think there are lots of little things that happened. I made a decision that I was going to sketch every day. And so I got a sketchbook and I started sketching every day. I think lots of things, and I think when you make a decision to do something or to turn in a direction, then your eyes are open to all sorts of things. And I started seeing things on social media, and I came across you and your boot camps, and I just started almost like turning my ship in that direction. And so I was pointing in that direction, and I started responding to things I saw. Went on a couple of courses. One of the things I did is which I think was really significant, I started writing like a sort of a little newsletter or sort of journal, if you like, of what I was doing, because I wanted to capture the process of somebody who, here I was, well into my 60s. I'd made a decision. I was going to do this thing. I had all this wealth of my life, and now I was coming to do something very, very intentional and very different. And I thought this would be really cool if I wrote a blog and I tracked this process, because I thought, sure as heck, other people are going to feel the same. The self-doubts, the criticism, the incessant voices in my head that said, what do you mean you're going to be an artist? What gives you this idea that you're going to succeed? And so I thought, well, I know, I'm going to write. And so I started writing, and that was actually really, really helpful. And I thought, even if nobody reads it, it's good for me, because I'm charting this really big journey in my life. I'm coming home to myself. And I want to work out what I can hear going on, because I know there's going to be some clues in there. And so it was a self-help blog, really.
Wow. I love that insight. It's like you're finding your voice. Literally, you're reading it back to yourself, and you're seeing the process that are sometimes so internal. You're seeing it on paper, and you are externalizing the things that are so internal. So I just love that. That's such a wonderful tip too for others that are struggling to take those steps, is just to start writing it down and start seeing and start relating to the inner artist that's hidden maybe, or has been snowed over or covered with a layer of dust. You brought it out. And then how did you share that? Where did you share the blog?
I just, Squarespace, I just set up a blog, and then I just started writing. I actually found it really easy to write, which was surprising. I didn't see myself as a writer, but I had this mindset that I was writing it to, as you say, to hear my own voice, discover who I was. I remember writing one about anger. I remember feeling really angry, and I was thinking, okay, I've always believed that this was a negative emotion, but what if it's not? What if actually having a really strong sense of anger within me is something to explore? What is that about? So I just started writing, really about anything that was kind of surfacing. And a lot of it was like conversations I could hear happening in my head. What's that about? Well, that's interesting. And I just kept getting curious about what was going on. I think doing all that in the COVID years was quite good as well, because we were all kind of pared back to ourselves, weren't we? And to looking within. That really served the purpose. It gave me time to sort of to do some self-examination, but in a creative way, saying what's going on here, what can I see, what can I hear, what's making sense.
And then how did you translate that into art? Were you simultaneously making art, or as you say, you were sketching every day? Where did that journey take you?
I was using pastels, and then I just suddenly thought, I want something else. I'm not sure what it is. And I just started picking up magazines. Bit by bit, I got into collage in a really big way. I just loved it. There was something so freeing about it. I wouldn't know what the end result was going to be, but I might have some sort of idea of a composition. And then I would just look through magazines and find all sorts of things. And it really developed into a bit of a passion, because then I had paint, I'd add pastel, it became mixed media. But the collage was such an eye-opener, because it linked with, I think, my intrigue around how do we open ourselves up to our creative world. It's really difficult, because you come so often with so much criticism, so much judgment, so much belief that, I've got half an hour, I've got 3 hours, whatever it is to work, but I'm sure it's not going to work, and I don't know. And, we come with so much self-judgment, but you can't do that with collage. It instantly opens the floodgates of kind of the right brain responses. It's mystical. It's, well, I don't know what am I going to find. Well, let's just see what happens. Where do we go? It's very playful, very experimental, very almost like a child comes to do art, in that glorious kind of untroubled way. And so I was experiencing this really lovely way of coming into my creative space. I suddenly wasn't judging anything I was doing. It became very intriguing to me, so much so that I started doing some online stuff. I was actually running some online groups for adults, and I even did it with family groups. So we had some really fantastic times with, we had 5-year-olds and teenagers and mums and dads and grannies, and they would sit round. I would do online training with them, getting them to use collage. And that was very, very interesting. So the collage thing actually became a big deal, a way for me to overcome my instinct to jump in and be critical of my work.
You were actually tricking your inner critic. You were
Exactly.
shortchanging it, and just in being playful, you were stepping over the need to do everything correctly, or the judgment that you may feel. I love that, Jane, and I think that's such an inspiration for so many people. It becomes so more accessible, and that creativity starts in that place of fun and enjoyment, and that would distill through everything you're doing, and that's infectious and beautiful to see and watch and share. I'm really curious too about your style. How has your style developed? How would you describe your artistic style?
I recently wrote a blog which I called From Hair to Here. The hair being spelled Hare, like the rabbit, the animal. And we have lots of hares in the fields where I live. And for a long time, I was really intrigued by them and did lots of work, collaging or pastel work. And that was my thing. I really, really enjoyed representing them in different ways. And then bit by bit, I don't know, I got really intrigued into much more abstraction. And I found myself, I was watching to see what sparked my interest, whether it was on Instagram or the books I was reading. I was looking to see when my heart went, oh, I love that. Oh, I was really paying attention to those little promptings. I started doing less and less of literal things and and just more and more abstract designs. And I'm still using collage in there, but the hair's left. and I've stayed with much more abstract representation and using acrylic, often working on board or canvas. And then I just had this great longing to go big quite soon. And I was a bit sort of apprehensive, but I just followed that instinct. And I remembered years ago when I was living in Kenya, again, one day, just having this great desire to do a big picture and making one which was about, 4 or 5 foot square of charcoal elephants. And I thought, I wonder if, I think it's going back to this idea of just following these little kind of clues that tell you, there was something there a long way back, and now it's coming through, and now I'm ready for it. Yeah, just being aware, I think, being aware of what was making me feel alive, what was sparking my juice, if you like, and then following that and saying, okay, well, let's try, let's do it, let's go with this and see what happens, and see how I feel. When I felt a sense of struggle, I thought, maybe not. When I felt a sense of joy, I thought, let's go with the joy and see where that leads.
How does the third component, the audience, come into the picture? When did you feel, okay, now I'm ready to share? Or is it something you shared quite quickly also with through the social channels? How does your art relate to a viewer?
Well, I think quite early on, I decided that I would have an exhibition, and that was very scary. I think after doing the blog, I then decided that the next scary thing was to create a website. And I remember having a wonderful session with you, and you explaining so clearly and very thoughtfully for somebody who wasn't very technical about how to do that. And that was really another big step for me. And then I think probably about 6 months after that, I felt I had enough work. Why not? My husband was he was great with that. He just said, look, what have you got to lose? Just do it. And so I did. And then I spent the next 2 years just having exhibitions at different places and looking to see how I felt. Was this a good space? Did I feel happy here? Did I want to exhibit with other artists? Did I feel happier just doing it on my own? Just lots of different combinations. Again, just always asking myself, how does this make me feel? Does this feel right, I suppose? And really what's occurred is that I've found one place that I really like to exhibit in. The space is big. The space feels me. I enjoy being there because on the whole, I'm one of these people who doesn't enjoy selling their art. I'd rather somebody else did it for me. I've never been a good salesperson. I find it, and naturally I feel quite awkward, and I just feel, I don't want to put people under pressure to buy my work. So all of that has come together, and I've worked out where I like to be. I'm having 2 exhibitions in that particular place this year, and I feel good about that. So I think, working out where the audience is, more than that almost, is what can I manage? What do I feel good about doing at this stage?
So that is the offline, the in-person. Do you invite them through social media? Do you have an email list? How do you get people to a physical space to view your art?
I have a newsletter, and a growing email list, and that I think I found quite challenging, and still do.
What do you find challenging about it?
Just encouraging people to sign up. Where do you actually finding people, new people? I'm not naturally a pushy person. My head is, how can I make strong art? Not how can I get everybody onto my list. But through having shows, through discussions with people, I've invited them to sign up. I get them onto my list, and then I send them news updates of where I'm going to be. And slowly it's coming. At the moment I've got interesting location. I've got 18 pieces of work in a gin distillery on the coast, which is lovely, in a place called Albury. That is not something I would have normally thought about, but I'm trying to think of just what would fit with me, what feels exciting.
How is your relationship with social media and with using that online space to connect with your audience? How are you finding that? What are you doing? What's working? What's not working?
Well, like most artists, I use Instagram, and I'm growing in confidence with that. I'm not so great at doing little reels of me chatting about my art. And I think that's my challenge really this year is what would I like to say and how can I say it in just little bite size, keep it sharp and simple, and just keep working at that space because I think it's great. And I do enjoy interacting with people there for sure. I mean, I think for me, it's essential. I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with social media to start off with, but now I feel good about it actually, and I'm just always looking for that little thing. If I see something that I think, oh, I love that, oh gosh, look at that, and I take a photograph, I think, oh, okay, I can use that. I just allow myself to be excited about something or a piece of work that I'm in the midst of doing, and it's on my easel, and I put just a little quote. I'm really into quotes. So somebody who's inspired me or something that has intrigued me this week, I just link that together. You know, this is me, this is what I'm doing, so that it's just more me and more natural rather than trying to follow something that's maybe a little bit smarter or, I'm settled with something that is me.
You are a working artist. How does your life look like as an artist? Do you have like set days? Do you have a routine? Do you work according to a schedule, or is it when you feel like it?
Right. Well, I do remember very early on listening to you talking about your habits and how important that is. And I so took that to heart. So I work every day. I don't necessarily get to my art room early in the morning, but I know as soon as I wake up, I'm thinking about it. And in fact, for the last 6 months, I've been doing something called morning pages, which I found really helpful. So as soon as I wake up in the morning, I just grab this pad of paper and I just start writing. I don't censor it. I don't check it. I just let it come out. And it's almost 99% about my art, how I'm feeling, what went on last night when I left the studio and I did something, and how I'm feeling, what's building up, what I sense. And I just write. And at first I thought, God, I'm not going to be able to write very much, but it's surprising how it's not actually just about the art. There will be, it might be something about a breakthrough that I've made or something I've noticed or an anxiety that's building up. It's just so brilliant to just lay it down. Nobody reads it. I just stick it away in a folder. And by the time I get to my studio, I've been thinking about things, and I just like to take my time and get there probably about, I don't know, 9:30, 10:00 with a big pot of tea, enough for at least 3 mugs. I always start with my sketchbook, or I've got a bullet journal as well, which it's something smaller, which I always paint or collage into. And then I can dump on the other side anything that's occurred to me, or anything that I've read on social media, which has encouraged me or challenged me. And then I guess when the tea is kicked in, I'm ready to start, and then I paint. I think this business of going out of the room and coming back, I do that a lot. And I set my phone to like 40 minutes. And then when that alarm goes off, I get out of the room, I go and do something, and then I come back. I found that to be really helpful because I see things differently. I go, oh, I can see that's not working. And what I'm trying to do is be much, much more present and watch when I stopped being discerning. When I can't work out what's right and wrong, then I need to be out of there. I think we are all artists. We're all creatives. And I think the thing that saddens me most is that we put artists in a special category so often. And I would love to see, especially in schools, a much healthier attitude and just a regard for art and anything creative, because it brings balance. I think we're designed to create. And I think we're much more fully human when we are. We have all this potential to make things that are not made, to bring things into being. I think from a very early age, that is sort of being crushed and kind of sidelined. It's like it doesn't matter unless you're one of these particular people who are just obsessed with art, and then we call them artists. I would love to see that it was a much more accepted thing, that creativity is embedded in almost everything we do. And I think we would see that in better mental health, better ability to have perspective, and better imagination and intuition. I think all of those very interesting but vital mindsets, I suppose, brain developments would be there if we made that sort of central to our lives. I feel it's vital that we almost as artists keep saying to people, no, it's for all of you. You know, don't think it's for a special group. We're all called to leave a mark on the earth, and it's a magical and wonderful thing to do.
There are not always sunny, bright days. It's a bumpy road being an artist. It's, you know, it can be a challenging profession. What do you least like about being an artist?
Well, I think made a comment earlier about just how hard it is to sell your work. And I think I really feel alone when I go a long time without any encouragement from anybody. I really resonate with other artists who feel the same. You know, I can sense it in them. And it's a lonely road when actually people come in and out of your home and say nothing, or they see your work on your website and say nothing. It's almost the saying nothing that can really bruise your heart. So I find that isolating, and not that you need everybody to rave about, you know, we all love different things. Yeah, I think that can be really, it can be quite soul destroying sometimes when you, especially if you go a long time without selling any work and you don't get any verbal affirmation from others. It has the potential to do you a mischief, really, in your mind.
What artists do you admire?
Oh, so many. I think David Hockney, I have always loved. No, I can't remember how many years ago. Maybe it was as long as 15 years ago. He did an exhibition, 25 paintings from Yorkshire, which he did outdoors. I remember just being as high as a kite coming back, just thinking, this is incredible. I love it. He's got pink fields and purple trees, and I just loved it. So I love how he has gone on evolving and changing through the years. And here he is in his 80s, and he's using an iPad every day. You know, he's learned to use an iPad, and he really got me into using an iPad when I'm away, or, you know, I don't have a sketchbook. I will use an iPad. And so he's a huge inspiration. And the other person I've just come across recently, William Kentridge, a South African artist. I hadn't heard of him before, and I went to the Royal Academy, an exhibition in the summer, and I was completely blown away. I have never walked into an exhibition and audibly gasped. I could not believe it. And room after room, I think there were 15 rooms full of his films, his tapestries, his collages, his plain charcoal drawings, everything on a big, unbelievable scale. And I'm not surprised he is called the modern day Picasso, because he is quite incredible. And I would urge anybody who hasn't come across his work to do so. William Kentridge, incredible. And highly inspirational. And I think the fact that he's changing all the time, it's like, for him, it's like there's no limits. There's like, well, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can try that. Yes, you know, and it's like that sort of vastness of his belief in what he can do and what he can say through his art.
Do you have like a life quote, something that you have hanging in your studio or hanging around your heart that is sort of sums up how you are living your life?
Oh, I have a journal absolutely stuffed full of quotes.
Oh.
And I sometimes think if I was going to have one made into a tattoo, you know, what would I have? But I haven't settled on one. But I do love the poet David Whyte. I just love his style, and he's a wonderful Irish philosopher, poet, and writer of all things worth listening to, as the Irish often do. He makes his quote into a question. I'm going to share this one with you. He says, "Will you have confidence in what you love?" So this idea of let your confidence come from the things you love. And if you love your art, let it give you confidence. Let it spur you on. Will you have confidence in what you love? David Whyte.
Jane, and in closing, if you were to have a chat with the 20-year-old version of Jane, would you give her any advice?
I can't change the past, but I think I would say keep a sketchbook, keep it alive, keep it real, because in a sketchbook, no, it doesn't matter. There's no failing. There's no failure. Just keep every day, do something, however small, and just keep that alive, keep that inquiry going for the time when you can really give yourself to it in a bigger way.
Jane, where can people find you? Where is the best place to communicate with you if people are interested in your art, following along? What's the best place to connect with you?
Well, on Instagram, and it's Jane, Jane, and then an S for sugar, and then Beaumont, Beaumont. So at Jane S. Beaumont. And my website is www.jane, Jane, Beaumont, BEAUMONT.art. And I'm sure you'll put those, .art. Okay. And my courses are on there as well. So if you want to inquire about those, you'll find it there.
Thank you so much, Jane, for sharing your story, your journey. Very inspiring, I think, especially for people that have maybe had a career or the kids are out the house and are at a point that they want to really make their creativity front and center. Thank you so much for sharing all your beautiful insights.
Well, thank you very much, Sonia. It's been my pleasure.
I love how Jane has been documenting her journey and launched a blog to track her progress as she delved into being a visual artist. Make sure to check out Jane's website and join her newsletter. Well, that's all for this week. If you want that extra support in marketing and building a business around your creativity, then you're welcome to join me and a group of wonderful artists from around the world in the Help I'm Artist Facebook group. And if you don't ever want to miss an episode, then you can follow or subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to this episode. And leave a review, as this will make the podcast more visible and easier for other artists to find it. Thanks for that. Have an amazing week, and I look forward to connecting with you next time. Until then.